Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Lombardo, a fractional CMO for hospitality, and today I am here with Lynn. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Lynn Zwibak of Zwibak Commercial Strategy. We are an revenue management and commercial strategy advisory firm focusing on incorporating revenue management concepts and strategies into all of commercial strategy disciplines, building a culture of revenue management and ultimately making more money for the hotels.
Sounds great. So we are today going to talk about revenue management and marketing. It's a very casual discussion today because we really just have one question to address because it has come up that what is it? What does it do when you hire a revenue manager, but you don't hire a full-time marketer? And it's a really important question because I think that there are brands that are really focused on increasing ROI, getting more revenue. And so they're like, well, let's put revenue management at the forefront of this. And, we've never really focused on marketing before. So the marketing will just fall into place if we just focus on revenue. So I guess, Lynn, can you talk about, the importance of revenue management, first of all, of course.
Right.
But what dangers would you see with somebody hiring a revenue manager and not hiring a full-time marketing person?
Oh my God. Okay. So hiring a revenue manager and not hiring a marketing person is like hiring half a revenue manager for the full price. So first, let me tell you why revenue management is important, and then I'll explain that. So revenue management, and if you're not familiar with revenue management, that is everything going on behind the scenes to make people able to book the property. So it is everything from distribution, what channels are you selling through, how are you putting your product on the shelf, so to speak? Like most people buy online now. So what does your booking page look like? What is your OTA profile look like? If people are calling you, what are your agents saying? How are they talking? What kind of questions are they asking? So making sure that all of that is working properly, not necessarily pretty, that's marketing's job, but functioning properly and that you're available where you want to be. The biggest part of revenue management that most people think of is the pricing. So determining the right price to sell to the demand that we have that exists. And that includes everything from raising the prices when demand is up or supply is limited to offering discounts when you're trying to bring in or to attract new types of customers or demand is softer or based on seasonality, etc. And then another big part that is often overlooked or misunderstood is inventory management. And that is making sure that, how to explain inventory management, making sure that your products are available in the right way. For example, a resort may want to have a 2-night minimum for a weekend stay because their demand is so high on Friday and Saturday that they only want to sell out to 2-night stays. But it'd be really dangerous for a resort to put a 2-night stay on a Tuesday, for example, if their demand isn't high enough, they don't have enough people who want to stay 2 nights. So it's very risky to have a restriction like the stay requirement in when it's not appropriate. But if you don't have it when it is appropriate, you're going to leave a tremendous amount of money on the table. Okay. There's a bit more behind that, but that's a really big part that people often don't understand.
Well, it's good that you bring all of that up because we get to ask the question of okay, so is the revenue manager person in charge of changing the photos on the OTA listing?
I mean, it depends, unfortunately. In smaller operations, it often falls to the revenue manager, partly because they're the ones that are getting contacted by the OTA representative telling them that they need better pictures. They're the one in the extranet seeing the alert, like you're missing 6 pictures. Or just because they're the ones who are finally going to get around to doing it. Should it be, I mean, that's where I made the comment that revenue managers are their job is to make sure we're available on those channels, but not necessarily that it looks pretty. Marketing has a much better handle on which images are going to sell better, what kind of copy you want, what's going to attract the right type of guest. Fortunately, it often falls to revenue management, who's just picking what they think is the best, which may or may not actually be. Ideally, you have a marketing department that's on top of those things, but from my experience, more often than not, it's not the case.
So I think the end goal is important to look at too, right? So if the end goal is just to get revenue, like just to get OTA bookings, then you can put pictures on the listing that look amazing, that set the expectation that this is going to be worth every dollar, that it's going to be perfection, you know, while you're in there, everything that you wanted. It looks huge, it looks airy, it looks light, whatever it is that you want to portray. And then the revenue manager sets the pricing. You'd be like, yeah, our pricing is high, and the marketing photos look glamorous and luxury. And then you get there and it turns out that is actually not the experience. The photos used a fisheye lens. It's not actually that big, right? And so now you have misalignment between the price you paid and what you feel like you were sold. And so I think that's a crucial thing, and that's right at the forefront. We haven't even gotten to the guest review yet.
Right. And we're only on one channel. We're only talking OTAs here. Right. Or other online channels where marketing is setting up the pictures. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it tends to happen more frequently when it is marketing doing that kind of thing, doing the pictures. But oftentimes, even when it's the revenue managers who know that the pictures sell a product that doesn't actually exist, that's all they have to work with. So that, like, it goes back to what's your photo shoot like? And before that, what product are you selling? How are you positioned? How are you really positioned? Not how you want to be positioned or think you should be positioned, or how your competitors, but maybe they're aspirational competitors, how they're positioned. Like, no, what's your product? Yeah, make it look as good as possible within the realm of reality.
So by positioning, what you mean is this is luxury, ultra luxury, this is budget, this is economy. That's what you mean by positioning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So same thing with the photos. And I can't imagine being in a revenue manager's position where they're told to like put the pricing, you know, at this one position. And then the revenue manager looks at the photos and says, wow, you want me to put this price on that?
Right. And I mean, photos aside, like back when I was doing property revenue management, I sat in meetings where GMs were telling me mostly to increase the price when I knew that wasn't our product. Maybe somebody was going to buy it, maybe, but they were going to be angry. They were going to complain. They were going to give us a bad review, and they were never going to come back. So your revenue manager has a really good sense of how the pricing aligns with customer sentiment, because they're the ones who are in the data looking to see, is that rate booking? Now, on the flip side, there's been times where we were desperate for business and I was told to drop the rate, which is equally risky. One, there's a lot of psychological consumer behavior reasons that you don't want to just drop the rate, but that aside, that your price conveys a message. And like, there's a reason that designer handbags cost thousands of dollars. Does it cost $1,000 to make that? No. But people expect it to be luxury. They expect to pay a lot. And if it's on sale for $200, you're going to wonder what's wrong with it or think it's a knockoff. So you really need to make sure that your pricing aligns with your product and what you're trying to sell.
Yes. Okay. So on that note, alignment. When you're trying to build a brand, right? You're not just looking to get all the OTA winnings possible. You're trying now to build a brand, possibly even build, direct bookings. Now you're looking at managing expectations where the guest review, it actually kind of turns into the next marketing product, because you're going to take that and put that back out there, and cycle that. And that now has value. So what does it look like, from a revenue management perspective, like you were saying, of like, if we goof this up, it could be right on the low side as well. People are going to think they're buying a fake handbag.
Right. So here's an example. I was doing the revenue management for a beachfront mid-level select service hotel. It was a really nice mid-level select service hotel, but it was still that. And this was the only oceanfront hotel in their little beachfront area. And they ran 98% occupancy in July and August. And it was only 98% and not 100 because, we couldn't get the overselling correct every day. You're always going to be over or under. So we tried to just keep pushing the rate to see how far it would go. And people bought it. We didn't actually reach a rate where people stopped buying. But what did happen was our TripAdvisor ratings consistently went down. This was a couple of years ago, back when everyone was focused on TripAdvisor ratings. And there was an almost direct inverse relationship between the price going up and the ratings going down. So again, people may buy it, but they're going to let you know that they didn't get their money's worth. So you have to know kind of your window, your range of rates that are just reasonable and acceptable.
That's really interesting. I love the fact that you were able to correlate that so closely between the two activities, because that's proof, right?
Right.
It doesn't get more clear than that.
Yeah, it was quite beautiful data, actually, as data goes. I appreciate it.
As far as data goes, that's beautiful data. I love it.
Yeah.
So if you look at hiring a revenue manager, do you think that it's important to have the person be full-time on staff, or can they work with other staff? Can you teach revenue management?
Oh. Yeah, yes. Okay, I'll start with the teaching revenue management. Can you teach revenue management? Yes, I do teach revenue management. I teach revenue management to non-revenue managers. And so those are people who need to understand revenue management concepts. And I teach revenue management to new revenue managers who are put into their job, mostly internal promotions, where the person was at the front desk or reservations or coordinator, and they showed real promise, but there's nobody on property, or it's an independent hotel or it's a small management company. There's nobody there to actually teach them how to do their job. It's really hard to become a revenue manager unless you're doing it, though. We can teach the concepts. I can teach the concepts and people understand it, and then they can have conversations with revenue managers. And to the new revenue managers, I can teach the concepts, but just teaching the concepts is only going to get us so far. So I do some coaching, and there's one client in particular who they're a seasonal property and they're going to be closing in October. And I'm like, we have to get everything in now, because you have to learn it while it's live, right? You need the experience. We can talk about forecasting, but you actually need to do the forecasting so that you can get the feedback to see if you were correct. So can you teach another person on property how to do it? Yeah. Are they going to be comfortable with it? No, probably not until they've had the practice.
Okay. So it would be better to get a revenue manager, even if it's just on a contract basis, to actually execute the management of the revenue.
As opposed to no revenue manager.
So if you're just starting to build, it's better to have somebody who's actually doing the revenue management, right?
Because and you're better off having a new person who may not have as much experience than having like the GM set the pricing, for example. Not that GMs aren't, perfectly capable, but it's not their job and it's not their focus. And they don't have the time or the mental bandwidth to sit there and look at the numbers. Also, they're a little too close to it, right? Like if they're getting slack from their ownership group that like you need to make budget this month, it's a little too tempting to just drop the rate and try to bring in anybody you can book. Whereas a revenue manager can have a little bit more distance. And then it becomes a dialogue and a strategy discussion.
So in that same fashion, you also, if you hire a marketing person, that person is not executing revenue management strategy.
They definitely shouldn't be.
Right.
Right. And I mean, it's, as I see it, it's two different complete skill sets of like, just like good salespeople don't always make good sales leaders. Like what makes a good marketing person is going to make them a not good revenue person, or vice versa. Like revenue managers they need data, they need information. They work with what is, whereas marketing, as I understand it, is more focused on what could be.
We're definitely trying to reach goals. So both revenue management and marketing rely on data and data sets, and adjust accordingly. But I think to your point, marketers look at, okay, here's what has been. I've got what we call a push goal, right? Or the uncomfortable to achieve performance or, demand generation higher than what we've achieved in the past. Which is not how a revenue manager goes at it at all, right? It's totally the opposite, like you said.
Yeah, and I realize I put that hook out there of hiring half a revenue manager, and it's been a little while. So if anyone's sitting there dying to know what I meant, I want to bring it back to that. So from a revenue management perspective, the role of the of the marketing manager is, like you said, to bring in more, I want to say business, but bring in more potential. And there's a reason I'm not going to use that word. To cast a wider net, right, than just people stumbling on the property through whatever coincidence they happen to come to. Revenue management's job is to take all that demand that has been created and select the most valuable business from within that available demand. So revenue management is not demand generation. Revenue management is demand selection. So that's where, a revenue manager can only do so much with the demand that exists. So if you're not actively creating demand from a marketing standpoint, revenue managers only got like half the potential to work with.
And I can see how if you don't have a website, if you only list your listings are only on OTAs, hypothetically, then if you only have a revenue manager, it's probably like, well, they can change photos and they can put a headline in there and they can do this. And that's technically marketing. So you have a revenue manager, who's adjusting the pricing accordingly, and then being asked to also adjust the photos, the headline, maybe even something in the description.
Yeah. And theoretically that would work. However, it would be really hard for a hotel or any accommodations property to exist like solely on an OTA. because the beauty of revenue management is that we can offer different products, like, different types of rates: advanced purchase rate, prepaid rate, stay 2 nights, get one free. And all of those are, it's the same product, right? It's a room and a bathroom, and it's a good night's sleep. But the way it's packaged becomes the product. And those are only the retail options. But and while you can offer some of those on OTAs, you can't necessarily offer all the iterations that you would want to offer. But then there's this whole other side of the business, like groups, weddings, reunions, corporate meetings, and then corporate rates. So individual business travelers who work for a company that stays at your hotel a lot. So that's going to be discounted rates. If you offer a AAA discount, if you offer an AARP discount. So those things aren't sold through OTAs. And frankly, the cost of selling through an OTA is often, not always, but often higher than selling through other channels. So it can be prohibitive from that standpoint.
Okay, so the takeaway from today's little chat is if you're thinking short term, then you can get away with revenue management with solely OTA listings. If you ever dream of being anything more, you're probably going to need to also hire a marketing person, because these are two different roles doing two different things. But in the end, gets you a brand, gets you growth, gets you more revenue.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
You're
Always
welcome.
a pleasure. Until next time.
Bye.